when it does go well, it is really rewarding. It's something, for me personally, I can never see myself sort of just going off and working for somebody else, because once you've done this, I think it's in you, and you're going to struggle to ever do anything different than working for yourself at that point.
This is the We Built This Business podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Osullivan. This is the podcast for UK business owners to share their journey, their knowledge, their sacrifices, and their successes. Today, I'm pleased to have Aled Davies on the We Built This Business podcast, talking about Cobra Workwear. Aled, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Dan. Good to be here.
Looking forward to today, Aled. So could we start by just giving our listeners a brief overview of what Cobra Workwear is all about?
Yeah, so Cobra Workwear. So we're mainly a business-to-business workwear and uniform provider. So that's anything from just basic polo shirts, t-shirts, through to high-vis, personal protective equipment, and all that sort of stuff. Along with that, we do in-house embroidery and print service as well. So add in company logos and names, etc., to those items as well.
Okay, so is it called screen printing? Is that right?
That's one method. Yes, there's a couple of methods you can do. So screen print is one of them. There's DTG, which is direct to garment. DTF, which is direct to film, which is like a transfer, which is then pressed on like a heat press as well. So there's different types for different sort of different types of orders and types of logos, really.
Yeah, because whenever we find that we're ordering stuff for work, we'll get a load of questions about what type of print we're looking for. Whether it's embroidery, screen print, other types of print. We're always like, we just want our logo on there. There's so many different options now. So what kind of size business have you built?
Yes, at the moment we're doing about, we'd be about 600k revenue. Our last set of accounts was, which this year, if all goes to plan, will be about 7 to 750.
Fantastic. Well, let's go back to the beginning. When did Cobra Workwear set up, and what was the story behind it?
Okay, so originally it was business started by my parents about 20 years ago. My parents had a sort of business selling all sorts of things. Mainly though, it was sort of about coal for heating your homes, bottled gas, pet food, that sort of thing. Don't know how then somehow it developed, and my father started selling safety boots as well. They started getting asked then for to do polo shirts stuff as well. And it kind of just developed from there, and then it got set up then as a standalone business around about the time I was leaving school, which was about 20 years ago. So yeah, and it kind of went from there then. So we started off just kind of doing any type of product that involved us being able to embroider or print on the products, because we bought the machinery to start up doing that. And then it's just kind of developed from there for us to now. So these days we're more of a specialised business-to-business workwear company. Okay.
So your father, was it your mother as well, you said, was involved?
Yeah, both my parents were involved. Yeah, mainly my dad, to be fair, but my mum was heavily involved too.
And I'm just trying to work out how he started printing polo shirts. Was that at home, or did he have a factory? How did he get into that?
If he was able to find somewhere he could buy them. So he got given, I said he started selling safety, which is just another sideline. I don't really understand how he managed to get into that, really, but he did. So yeah, and somehow someone must have asked him. I think they wanted some polo shirts for their business. Nothing big, might be 20, 30 polo shirts, something. He found a way to source the polo shirts, but then went to a local person, did embroidery then to get the embroidery done. And then he started picking up more and more people doing that. And then eventually thought, well, if we're going to do it, just do it properly. So went and bought the first embroidery machine. And that was about 2005, I think that was. So yeah, nearly 20 years ago.
Yeah, fantastic. So I guess he must have just spotted a bit of a gap, and then he just built on there essentially.
Yeah.
And when did you join the business?
Well, I used to work part-time when I was a kid on weekends and stuff with my dad. So, when I was 12, 13, but when I left school, which was just before I was 17, I started full-time then when this business had just been started up then. So, so that was just before I turned 17.
Okay. And so if we're looking at it from today, who's involved in the business today? Is it heavily family orientated?
Yeah, still heavily family oriented. We got myself, my two brothers. So I've got an older brother and a younger brother. They're both involved everyday work here. My father's still here every day, as well as my auntie, believe it or not. And then we have got a couple of people then who aren't family involved as well. So yeah, there's a team of 10 of us in total, but mainly, like I said, a proper family business. Really.
Yeah, I've got a big question. Who's in charge?
Well, me apparently. Although, yeah, my dad likes to remind me sometimes that he's still ultimately in charge. He thinks, but
so how do you find working with your family so closely?
Well, there's a lot of pros to it. There's there are some negatives. Obviously, being family sometimes it's a bit, if we meet up outside of work for, we've all got kids and have a birthday or something, and inevitably the talk turns to work, which my mother gets a bit fed up of. So yeah, it's not always to leave it in work. And obviously being family, you're gonna fall out occasionally and don't always see eye to eye with it, but we're pretty good at just sort of leaving it. When we do fall out, it never really festers beyond that day, to be fair. But yeah.
So you don't have any situations where you come into a family event and no one's talking?
No, it was never got quite that bad, luckily, I suppose. But yeah, we got a fair few blowouts in the office. But yeah, I think we just learned how to just get on with it now, to be fair.
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to talk about some of the challenges you've had along the way. One of the big challenges that you've identified is actually making a profit. And I think that's underestimated in the startup phase of how hard it is to actually run a business and make a profit. How have you either overcome that challenge, or how are you looking to overcome that challenge?
Yeah, well, in our industry as well, a lot of, like I said, we do all of the embroidery and print ourselves in-house. So obviously to do that means we've got to have the machinery to do that, and that is a big investment outlay as well. So that does make things quite tight when it comes to cash flow, because obviously we've got to fund those machines when we buy them, whether it's a lease or a high purchase, what have you. And obviously that comes out of the company's profits as well. So when you're looking at it at an end of year profits figure, if you've got, as you know yourself, your capital expenses come after your profits. So yeah, it's difficult. And in our industry, things have changed over the last 15 years quite a lot in terms of technology. So you can't really just sit there with a piece of machinery and think that's going to be there in 20 years, paid off, and you'll still be, ahead of the curve, so to speak. So, for instance, when you mentioned the print types earlier, like DTF, I mentioned direct to film. That's a very new technology. It's just come out in the last 2 years. So again, 5 years ago, no one had heard of that. Now all of a sudden, everybody in our game is trying to make sure they've got a way of offering that service. Because those every couple of years you're going to have to invest more in machinery, and obviously that takes money, and that takes investment. So
I imagine the pressure on cash flow is you've got to produce more money with each machine that you buy than it costs as quick as possible before that technology effectively becomes obsolete.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of embroidery, there hasn't been much difference in embroidery in the last 20 years, but machines have got quicker, or they obviously they develop them a bit to be a bit quicker, or they're a bit more reliable, that sort of thing, less maintenance on them, that sort of thing. So we've still got some of the earliest machines we bought here, which are still going and it's still great, but obviously the parts then would now become obsolete. So if we had a big part go on one of those, we'd then be in a position where we couldn't get it fixed properly. So yeah, it's every couple of years you're always having to reinvest. So that's always a bit of a squeeze on your cash flow. And obviously, the more machinery you buy, the more people you need to run those machines as well, which then follows that you're going to ensure you're going to work them in to keep them obviously busy and paying their way. So it's it's always a bit of a juggle.
With people, I imagine, you have to train each person on a certain machine, and then, once they get good at that machine, they then potentially will get trained on another one. How do you keep people moving forward in the business enough that they're happy and stay for a long period of time?
Yeah, well, to be honest, that is a challenge in this industry, because it is quite niche as well. So when we do have, say, if a job came up, for instance, which was involved with the machinery, so like running on the embroidery machine, something like that. Obviously, in an ideal world, we want someone who's done that before, because it makes our life a lot easier if they've got experience. But there's not going to be a lot of people out there with that experience, just because it is a very niche type of industry. So it's always hard for us to find people then, because when we get people in, you get them trained up. Some of them then think, well, maybe this is not quite what I want to do. So we've had a lot of people come in over the years as youngsters, started doing it for a year or two, then they maybe move on to want to do something else or what have you. But it is that's probably one of the biggest challenges we face really, is recruiting people for that area of the business. It's quite difficult to find people who maybe want to do that as a long-term role,
Yeah. I can imagine as well, when you put an advert out on Indeed, and if you want an admin role or a sales role, it's like you said, it's very more universal essentially. But when you're looking for a specific skill set, I imagine the majority of the time you'll be able to bring someone in completely fresh and then train them up, which is very time consuming and also takes a good 3 or 4 months before you get a return on that person. I'm just thinking from an area point of view, because the whole work from home, it's very hard to do that when you're producing embroidery, isn't it? So I imagine it's been a big struggle. And how have you kind of tried to overcome getting staff?
Well, there's been a couple of things with it. I mean, first of all, we try and be, obviously, we try and be as flexible as we can be in terms of offering people. Obviously, we try and offer as good a wage we can offer. We like to think that we're a welcoming sort of company to go work into as well. We know we're not too it's not very corporate as such, so we try and be obviously professional. We want to do the best job we can do and everything like that. But we like to make sure that people feel welcome and that hopefully they would enjoy it as much as they can too. But it has always been a challenge trying to find people for those roles. We found quite often some people started it, and within a week they're not sure this is what I want to do for the next 5 years of my life, sort of thing. So yeah, it's just one of those things, isn't it? But then again, we've lapped into a couple of people. So we've got someone who works just now, involved around the printing machines mainly. And his background was he worked in a sort of printing background, and he's from the Midlands, but he moved down here. And because he had that background, he just took to it straight away, and he loves that job, and he just gets on with it, and he's brilliant. But finding other people that have maybe got a similar experience, not always so easy. So sometimes we have to kind of try a few people before we find someone who first of all wants to carry on that role, but also that we find is a right fit for us as well.
Have you ever looked at the apprenticeship route?
We did actually. We did one years ago, and the problem for it was it was done as like a manufacturing apprenticeship, and I think the person took it on. I gave a young lad who came in, and he was not a great boy, I think, but I think he wasn't quite manufacturing he maybe envisaged. So he did the apprenticeship for the 2 years, and then he went off and he did something else. But yeah, because it's so niche, it's not really like, it's not manufacturing like maybe in some people maybe envisage it to be. So yeah, but that's probably, again, we have spoken now when we look to get the next person in that, we are probably going to look again at apprenticeship on it, because I think personally getting in someone in younger, maybe if that's their first role in the working world as well, getting to really buy into it. Obviously, we hope as we grow over the years, there becomes more opportunities then for that person to maybe become, say, a supervisor or something on that lines. And that gives them an opportunity for growth as well. So I think that's probably the route we'll go down next time. Yeah, when we come to that.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea. I think if you can make a career out of it, especially, like you said, it's a niche industry, but obviously there's a lot to it, and there's a lot to learn. So there's plenty of scope there. I wanted to go on to how you get customers. Obviously, getting customers is one of the hardest things to do. What's your approach to secure business?
Well, we try and go through a few ways, so not to be too reliant on one. So we've got our website, which we do SEO. We have a nice SEO company that we work with every month to work on that. So that helps us with the website, just again inbound leads there. We also then do like our own outreach. So I do a lot on LinkedIn, where obviously try to post as much as I can, but then I'll get in touch with people, do a bit of cold calling, just sort of cold emails, that sort of thing as well. And we just sort of try and see what happens. And we try a couple of techniques to see what's working. If one starts working really well, we'll go a bit further with that one. One doesn't work so well, then we'll try that one for the next few months, and we'll try something else. Because we got to a position a couple of years ago where we were doing, say, Facebook ads, and it was absolutely flying, and we couldn't keep up with the work it was bringing in, frankly. But then there was algorithm change on Facebook, and then all of a sudden sales just dropped overnight. learning from our lessons from that. We don't ever want to be completely reliant on one sort of marketing channel to get us our sales, because anything changes it, then all of a sudden then you're scratching around looking, like, well, where's the next sale coming from if that's not working so well? So yeah, it is a real challenge, because what we tend to find, a lot of the people who we would deal with as a customer BR contact, it's not obviously their main job is to order, say, the staff uniform. It's just, it could be given, it could be like the office manager, they get sort of lumped on their lap, they've got to sort it, or it could be like a procurement person, but then it's probably quite small in comparison to the other stuff they got to do. So trying to get the contact of that right person, and for them to need to spend the time on it as well, is quite difficult sometimes. But what we tend to find then is when we win a customer, we do tend to keep them for a good period of time. And as long as we do our job properly, we can hopefully give them no reason to leave and look elsewhere.
Yeah, and that's where the lifetime value comes in. I just wanted to go back to that Facebook algorithm. What was working so well about it, and what were you selling? Was it workwear?
It was workwear, but it was workwear bundles at the time. So that would be things like, say, like, I'm trying to think back of my head a bit, it would be, say, 3 polo shirts, 2 hoodies, and a jacket, say, and that would be a set price with your logo. So it was very simple. That appealed really well to sort of, very small companies. So maybe, it could be a building contractor who's got 3 people working with him, and they just go on and buy 3 of those bundles. That's their job, job sorted of their uniform for the year. Done. We were working with an agency at the time who were running them, and they were running them for lots of people, and they'd obviously found a way to get them working really well. And it was great at the time, because it was like, well, we upped the budget and more sales would come in. Then we had the problem, we couldn't keep up with the sales then. So it was, we try to then put things in the back end then to try and infrastructure, try and keep up with the sales and processes and like that. But like I said, about a few months later, then the algorithm changed on Facebook, and it was never quite the same with those again. We don't do so much. We did Facebook ads last about 6 months ago, and it's still the case then. The algorithm has never quite worked as well as it did that time. But again, like, marketing is a real challenge. Like you said, you've got the lifetime value part of it, but that's obviously very reliant on you ensuring that you get a good lifetime period out your customer as well. If you get customers coming through via like a Facebook ad or Google PPC, or what have you, and they only buy it you once, you've probably not made any money on that customer. So another challenge, really.
Certainly is. No, it's really interesting. I know quite a few people that have done well on Facebook, and then, like you said, the algorithm changes, and overnight it's gone again, and it's stressful when that's a worry, isn't it? I mean, have you ever tried direct mail as one avenue?
We haven't really tried it. Although there's a podcast I listen to a lot, and the guy on there advocates a lot for doing what he calls it lumpy mail. He calls it. So rather than just mailing someone something, just a letter, you would send them like a bright coloured envelope with, so it stands out, and then maybe physically put something in there as well. Like, I can't think of any examples he's given now, but just something to make sure that stands out from everything else, so it does get not just picked up, or it's another advert and just gets big, and it's something that makes that person take notice. It's something I have wanted to try that, but it's not something we got around to yet, but we probably should give it a go, because I think, obviously as technology's developed over the last few years, everybody's doing email. We do email campaigns all the time as well. Everyone does email, and everyone doing Facebook ads, Google PPC. So that area is getting really crowded now, whereas not so many people probably do the direct mail route these days.
There's a company that I've heard of that they send a flip-flop through the post, so just one flip-flop, and it says obviously their company details on there, and it essentially says, now I've got my foot in the door, how about we have a chat? And just like their email address, and I think they may be in some promotional kind of products industry essentially, but I thought that's actually quite relevant for probably what you guys do in a way.
Yeah.
I don't know, do you produce flip-flops? It doesn't have to be. It's just more like, I'm just thinking, if you've got them already there, you can start producing your own.
No, but yeah, it is. I see your point. It is. It's again, it's trying to get that. It's trying to get yourself in front of the right person first of all, and then for them to take the time to speak to you, because of like everybody, everybody gets cold calls of people and things like that, and it's you haven't always got time to really deal with it. So it's finding a way to stand out from everybody else ultimately, isn't it? And then once you've got that opportunity, then it's up to you to try and make that opportunity count then. But it is a real challenge getting the getting them up to in the first place. But I suppose that's why a lot of people, I think, really like it when Google ads and Facebook ads work well, because it's a lot of inbound. So you're not going out and you're not making 100 calls a day and speaking to 2 people and being told to sort off all the time. They're coming to you with an inquiry or with a sale. So I think it's such a broad spectrum, I think, marketing, isn't it? You've got to try a lot of different techniques, I think, and even if one works really well, as I said earlier, you can't really rely solely on that.
Yeah, it's just constant trial and error, isn't it? Effectively, you do well in one thing one year, and then the next year it's completely changed. I think it's literally what innovation is. It's just constantly trying new things, and then whenever you get something that works, you stick out that until that doesn't work anymore. I wanted to focus on a little bit on sustainability. So we've got a brand that does employee welcome boxes effectively. So we send employees that have just started in their business a box of branded items. And the whole point that we keep getting pushback on is the sustainability part. Being in the promotional branding industry, how is that industry changing and adapting to sustainability?
Well, first of all, in terms of like workwear and stuff, there's a lot more options now for garments that are made with recycled products and things like that. And while these first started on the market a couple of years ago, the price on them before so much higher than what the standard was. It wasn't, you'd have conversations with people and be able to show it to them, but the price was so much they wouldn't really entertain it. Whereas over the years now, obviously more and more of that stuff's coming to the market, and the prices have come down where, in many cases, there's barely much in it between, say, a normal polo shirt and then one that's made completely recycled fabrics and things. So what we find now is a lot more times that when we speak to a customer now, and whereas before maybe they'd ask us, then we would maybe give them that option. We kind of always now use that as an option and say, well, there's your standard range, but there's also a recyclable range we can offer you, or sustainable range, I should say. And a lot of people now, from our experience at least anyway, are more inclined to go with the sustainable route now, just because of the everything else that comes with it and what have you. So yeah, there's a lot coming to the market on that, and probably over the next couple of years, really, that's only going to increase from what we're getting told from our suppliers.
Yeah, and I imagine the suppliers leaning towards that way as well, like you said. And I guess the key thing is it's adapting to it, isn't it? And also, if that's what your customers are after, because we found with sustainability, it's sometimes hard to justify anything, because if you're sending a product to someone, do they need that water bottle? Do they need that item of clothing? Do they need this? And, our answer is, well, it's very hard to say because you're ordering it, if you know what I mean. As in, like, the sustainability side of it is we've done until this point as sustainable as we can. It becomes, market led ultimately. And if the market's saying this is, we want everything sustainable, we can do that, but it costs more. And then the pricing battle then starts with, we want it to be sustainable, but we also need it to be this price. So there's that trade-off, I find. Yeah,
there is also another thing that's happened. I've been in discussions with a company on this out to see if we can do it. Is there are companies now offering services where they will pick up your sort of used, so like an iron, so it's like workwear stuff. So it could be, this staff who've left, wherever they hand their workwear back into them, and you're going to get that recycled, and that's fully, they've got a full audit on it when it goes back to, it doesn't go to landfill and all that sort of there as well. So it is going sort of full circle now with that as well. But again, there is a small cost to that as well. So it's, and I think as you just touched on there, I think everybody wants to do things a bit more sustainably. We all understand we've got our responsibility to do that, but at the same time, it's all got to, it's got to fit within people's budgets and what people can afford to do as well, isn't it? Because, there's been a lot of challenges for businesses the last couple of years, and added costs is not always the easiest conversation to have with people. I felt the last couple of years, to be fair.
No, definitely. And it is very hard to overcome that cost increase sometimes. And there's not much you can offer because the margins are very, very slim already. I wanted to talk about Aled day to day. So a lot of people when they're managing director, CEO, their roles are very, very varied. What do you get up day to day? Well,
first thing I get in is usually just an overview of say where we're at sort of cash flow wise with our bookkeeper. That normally dictates then what my next couple of hours are going to be, really. If things aren't quite as we were hoping for there, I might have to jump in and help on a few bits there. If everything's to plan, then I'll move on to something else. But I quite often then I go out. I mean, I'm the main sort of salesperson in the business too, so I'm often then out to meet potential new customers or existing ones if we need to. As well as then I'll do a lot of outreach emails to try and get in contact with potential new businesses, and then pricing up things as well. So if customer gets in touch then with a potential inquiry, I'll be the one who probably quote most of those, not all of them. My brother just handles some of that, but the large ones probably come through me. So by the time I've done those, I mean, that takes up a lot of my day, to be fair. As well as then obviously we've got, again, just because we do all the production ourselves, there's also, we've got to factor in then deadlines for customers, so it's ensuring then that what's coming through is going to go out on time to the customer. But I mean, what I find mainly my job is really is if basically if something's gone wrong somewhere, it basically gets obviously pushed towards me because I'm the one who's got to make the ultimate decision on it. So it could be a case of there's been an error made in the production, so we've got to sort something out for that. So that may get brought to me then I got to get involved in, right, well, what's the solution going to be there? We got to replace the items, or was it matching the proof we provided, these sorts of things. So it's a very, very varied job, which is probably why I do enjoy it, because I think doing the same thing day in, day out was probably wouldn't be for me. But it can be very challenging at times, to be fair.
Do you ever have to jump on the machines and help out with some of the embroidery?
Not so much now. I mean, I used to use it when I first started. That's mainly what I would do. What we tend to do now is and that's again one of the pros of being a family business. If we've got, I mean, this week, for example, we've got an absolute influx of quite large orders which we've got to get out within the next 10 days. So what I probably mean is me and my brothers will probably do a couple of extra evenings where we'll stay for a few hours and we'll just run the machine just out of hours just to get us called up, basically. It's the kind of thing, doing those, once you kind of learn how to do it, it's kind of something you're never really going to forget how to do it, so you can pick it up quite easy. I mean, I try to look at it, if I'm doing that during the daytime, I'm not really working on the business, I'm working in it, so I try to keep as much of my time free to be focusing on getting the next set of customers in and ensuring the existing ones we've got are being looked after where I can.
Yeah, it's a battle, isn't it? Trying to split your time, because you've already talked about, you started in finance, you then went to sales, you then did some marketing, you then were in, it's just constant, every area of the business needs your attention, and it's just balancing that time. Do you kind of have any tools to try and, any process, any systems, any software that helps manage your day? This podcast is sponsored by Team Building Experiences. If you're planning a team building event, away day, or corporate event, then check out team-building-experiences.co.uk and state podcast 15 in the comments to receive 15% off your proposal.
I mean, I use my calendar for it's very basic, I know this, but I mean, I use my Outlook calendar for pretty much everything. So, if I got to be somewhere, it has to be my calendar, otherwise I simply, not I'd forget about it necessarily, but if it doesn't go in there, then it's not happening, basically. That's one thing. We use like CRM tools so that to help with the customers and things to like remind us of when you've got to get back in touch with people, those sorts of things, just to make it a bit easier on that front. And then one thing I've started doing recently is something called I'm not sure how to pronounce this correctly. Pomodoro technique, is it? Have you heard that?
Okay, I haven't heard of that.
So basically it's meant to be basically you get these timers, you just get them on your desktop, on your laptop, or your PC, and you basically do, right, so 25 minutes of, you just get your head into whatever you've got to do the next 25 minutes, stop, 5-minute break, and then you go back another 25 minutes, just like a productivity tool, if you like. Because again, it's very easy these days. I mean, and I can be the world's worst for that, is where, I'm there doing a bit of work, phone goes, mobile goes, it's a message, and a lot, it's work service, customers get in touch or what have you, or an email pops up, and then before you know it, then I've been dragged off into something I wasn't intending to be dragged into. that's the main ones. I keep it quite basic to that, and just do a to-do list every day in my notebook, and I try and tick my way through as many of them as I can. Never ever get to the bottom of all of them. Very, very simple, but
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's to keep it simple, isn't it? That's the thing. And I try and do this 90-minute session where, first thing in the morning you come in and you do 90 minutes of high intense either learning or just working on one thing. And the amount of times that within 30 minutes I'm off doing something else, and before I know it, my whole to-do list for the entire day, I've finished the day and I've gone back and it's all still there. And it's just so easy to get pulled into things. And it is a challenge. It's a big challenge. Have you ever gone close to throwing in the towel?
I haven't. No, I mean, don't get me wrong. Had some very, very tough times. I mean, and as obviously I'll touch on it now. We have to restart as a business a couple of years ago. We've been running as the same sort of limp company for 16, 17 years. We had a fire. So that was in 2019. Yeah, March 2019. So we had a fire in our unit at the time. So then the next year then was going through getting the insurance over with that. So that was a really difficult period. I won't delve into too much detail on that, but wasn't quite didn't quite work out as it should have, should we say, in terms of the way the insurance was. And then a year after that, obviously COVID hit. So obviously that brought its own challenges, brought its own opportunities as well, COVID, but it brought a lot of challenges too. Then we had a massive growth then on our website, this is when the period was the Facebook ads, and it was working really well. Like I said, to keep up with that, we had to put more costs and more sort of process into the business to be able to keep up with that workload. So we took on more staff. We had a second shift going basically for production. So we were operating for pretty much 18 hours a day then. Then the algorithm changed and that dropped. And then all of a sudden you've got all this extra cost, these extra staff. We have all the work coming through for it. So we had to try and reverse out of that then. And then unfortunately we had to make a decision to sort of restructure, which was a difficult decision to make, but ultimately, we had to make a decision on it, which we did. And that was just over 2 years ago. So we've had to effectively restart from, not from scratch, the wrong words. Also, we've got a customer base that we're able to tap into and everything. It's been a difficult couple of years, but we are sort of coming out the other side of it now, thankfully. And ultimately, like from my perspective and from my brothers, my parents started this company, and they could have, I suppose, cashed in a lot more back in the day when we were just coming out of school, but they offered us an opportunity to come in here with a full-time job and be part of the business. So I sort of see as that we owe it to them as well to carry this forward and make it as successful as we can.
Yeah, I mean, really hats off to you. It's tough, but sometimes you have some bad luck. Business is a lot about, those that have good luck and those that have bad luck, and every business that goes long enough will have some bad luck at some point. And sometimes, with a fire, and I can imagine all the stock, everything like that, and the insurance not paying out. I can only imagine how long it takes for an insurance company to pay out. The impact on the business is it's very, very difficult. Very difficult.
I mean, to be fair, when it comes to, obviously we lost all our stock in the fire, but obviously it's all insured. And don't get me wrong, when we first go through something like that, all your customers are like, oh God, that's horrendous, obviously expect our order to be a little bit late, etc. Everyone's very understanding to start with, because, obviously no one wants to hear something like that happen. It's terrible. But obviously after a few months then, people have still got their own businesses to run. So if we're having issues because the insurance are not, helping us out quick enough, that's not really their problem. They still got their business to run, which I completely understand, because we've all been there when a supplier maybe has an issue, and you think, well, that's not my problem. I got my own business to run, So it was more the reputational damage it caused. It took a long time really for us to really get through that period. And then I said, obviously COVID hit and what have you. And I think people don't realize how hard it is to get from, people got this idea when you do like a restructure, you basically just, start of the next day, everyone's happy and you move on. You don't. There's obligations you can't get out of. There's lots of other things that come out of during those periods, and you've got to find your way through them. I said we knew the first three years after we were going to be going to be difficult. They have been relatively difficult, but we're still going. We're still here, and we'll still be here in a year's time, and we'll get through it, and we'll progress from there then. But yeah, it has been a tough few years. There's no point dressing it up as anything other than that, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, business is often about resilience, and sometimes you have to restructure. There is no other way, to keep things going. And I think you also, the other bit in there is the mental toughness as well to continue, because it was easy to potentially walk away. But like you said, you've got that legacy fact. You want to build it to the next level. Yeah, completely 100% admire that. What is the next level for Cobra Workwear? Where do you want to take the business?
Well, we want to ultimately grow to be, we want to be multi-million turnover with, good margins, good profits. And yeah, not just from the money aspect, but that's what we want to be, one of the bigger players in our area especially, but also UK wide. So our plans over the next sort of 3 to 5 years will be to grow into multi-million turnover, and then yeah, I mean, I know the way my brain works. Once I get to that level, we'll probably want to go to the next level again then. But yeah, like I said, we're a long way off that yet, but we are making steps towards it. And that's probably something again, going back to the difficult times, you can't always do things as quick as you want them to be happening either. I mean, I always want to be moving forward, so to speak. So that's been part of what I found tough the last couple of years. I had to accept that we got to just slow down, get everything set back up, and just sort of, take it slow for a few years, and then we can hopefully then we can ramp up then from there. But we want to employ more people. We want to have a bigger team. We want to invest back into the business. But yeah, like I said, it all goes back into all the different challenges of getting customers, cash flow, all these various things. It's all got to sort of work together.
Yeah, I mean, it takes time as well. It often takes 10 years to build a business that is sustainable without you in it, so that you can just constantly focusing on growing it. And sometimes it's just time you need. And yeah, a lot of the time there's so much going on that you just have to go through those levels, don't you? And I'm no doubt that you'll be, pushing that way, especially over the next 3 to 5 years, because God forbid, hopefully we won't have cost of living crisis, COVID, European war, everything, Brexit, everything else that we've had in literally it's a miracle that there's any business left, to be honest. So there's certainly been some challenges.
The last couple of years, it just feels like something every year, some massive sort of thing just happens that makes you think like, what could actually happen next? It's
I imagine also the energy crisis. I imagine that really impacted your margins as well. What impact did that have when energy almost doubled or tripled, didn't it, in just about 18 months ago?
Yeah, well, I mean, for our business, we're not an enormous sort of user of like electricity and energy as such, but even for us, our bills tripled during that period. So it was cost us more than what it was to rent the premises we're in, just to actually the electric running. So, I mean, it's a massive hit on your margins and stuff. And of course, there was also that was also feeding into our supply chain. So our suppliers were getting in touch with us then, and they were, having to put their prices up at certain periods because they couldn't absorb all the increases. We would have to try and pass that on as best as we could to our customers where we could. Obviously, we had to, we would take a step to minimize those increases best we could too. But yeah, it was just a really, really volatile sort of period, because it was, I mean, we didn't really know as well month to month what it was going to cost us, because we pay basically for the electricity we use here. So it was, 1 month it was at a certain level, then it was 2 months later, it was, like I said, 3 times the price. And it's like, Jesus, we got to, all of a sudden now we're going to find that extra money every month as well. Yeah, it was a real big challenge, really.
How have things kind of leveled out now?
Yeah, we're back to not far off what we were paying before the crisis. I'd say it's still maybe about 30% more than it was back then, but it's a lot less than where it got to. So, yeah, and it's staying around that level. So we've adjusted to expect that's going to be the new normal, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Yeah, sitting down and every month the bill's coming in and it's getting higher and higher. It's just impossible to, you talk about earlier about cash flow and profitability. how do you plan? Like we set a budget for 12 months at the start of the year. You don't expect that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we do the same. I work quite closely with our accountants. We come in every few months with me and sit down, and we do like a 12-month budget and all that. But like you said, it's all well and good doing those things, but they're all theoretical, aren't they? If something massive like that comes out the woodwork, all of a sudden it just throws all your plans into the down the drain, and you've got to just adjust as quick as you can and just try and get your way through as best as you can. It's but again, it goes back to, like I say, with my job, it is so varied, because you come in one morning, something's happened, and all of a sudden you've got to adjust, and straight away you've got to find a way through it.
Yeah, 100%. Last question, Alan. What advice would you give to someone looking to start a business in 2024?
Probably that it's going to be harder than you think it's going to be. Very rewarding when things go well. There's going to be always going to be challenges. There's never going to be a sustained period where it's just always going to be nice and simple. There'll always be challenges every day, every week, just crop up out of nowhere. Sometimes it feels. Probably, unless you're extremely fortunate, there's going to be times when, you're going to have to pay yourself late because cash flow issues. I mean, I'm sure anybody who's run a business with any staff will probably be in there where, you had to basically say, right, we can pay our staff today, but I'll have to wait. But you take that pressure on yourself. I got a couple of friends who run businesses themselves, and, we chat sometimes, and we all sort of say that. I mean, people don't think that's the reality, but it is. But like I said, when it does go well, it is really rewarding. It's something, for me personally, I can never see myself sort of just going off and working for somebody else, because once you've done this, I think it's in you, and you're going to struggle to ever do anything different than working for yourself at that point.
Yeah, it's a really good insight and really good honesty as well, because there's been times where I've 100% been there, that everyone else has been paid and I'm waiting for another few days until that's possible. And you just have to get through it. There is no way around it. But it's an eye opener to people that don't run businesses, because they don't see anything but the flashy headlines often, because that's what's people are shouting about.
Yeah, I mean, you anytime you go on LinkedIn these days, everyone's just it's just do it on. There are very good points to it, and it's sometimes it's brilliant when things are going well. But then like you say, you see a lot of people going on about talking about when things are going well. You don't very rarely see people talk about that when it comes to the realities of running a business, especially like I said, LinkedIn is a prime example these days. I mean, it's all I see on there is people talking about meditating at 5 a.m. and cold water dipping and all this doing stuff. And I mean, it's it's not the reality I've experienced anyways, put it that way. But as I said, there are times where it's it all looks great and everything's everything's brilliant. And when you get we've been lucky this year, we've landed a couple of really decent sized customers, new customers on board who are pretty big names in Wales, so to speak. And it's brilliant when all that things happen. You enjoy those moments, but you also know that there's another challenge just lurking on the corner waiting for you as well at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks, Aled, very much for coming on today. Really enjoyed chatting, and yes, so resilient, I think, and there's so much to take away from this. Where can people find out more about Cobra Workwear and also yourself?
Well, we're obviously online, so our website is www.cobra-workwear.co.uk. We're also we've got pages on LinkedIn, Instagram. Myself, I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so you can find me on there. Quite often posting about recent work we've done, and sometimes taking the mick out my brother on there as well. So just the usual social channels and online, and anyone ever interested in anything we do, feel free to get in touch, and we'll be more than glad to help you out.
Lovely. Well, thanks very much, Aled.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it, mate.
So that was another episode of We Built This Business, and we'll be back next Tuesday.